ॐ तव कथामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कलशापहं शरवणमङ्गलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि वनन्ति भूरिराजन्. Your words are like nectar, bring life to scorched souls. They are praised by poets and remove all sin. They are auspicious to hear, wonderful and exalted. Those who spread these words throughout the world are truly giving souls. Welcome, everyone, to our class on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. We're on the chapter at the Star Theater, Part 1, and it's page 545. The date is Sunday, September 21st, 1884. And we haven't yet gotten to the Star Theater. The chapter starts out, or this day starts out, in Sri Ramakrishna's room. A large number of devotees were in Sri Ramakrishna's room, among them Ram, Mahendra Mukherjee, M, and Chunilal. Chunilal had just returned from Vrindavan, where he had gone with Rakhal and Balaram. We've seen the last few sessions how Sri Ramakrishna was very concerned about the Rakhal because he got fever when he was there, and we know this idea that Sri Ramakrishna had, that these very special souls that have some connection with the divine place, that there's the chance that that recollection of their previous association will awaken and that they may even give up the body in that place. So he was nervous on two accounts. One is that Rakhal actually became sick. In those days, people got fever and died. They didn't have the right medicines and things for everything. And also this other idea that he connected Rakhal, of course, with the cowherd boys of Krishna, and that also might be a reason. Chunilal had just returned from Vrindavan, where he had gone with Rakhal and Balaram. Balaram's family was very wealthy. They were very orthodox Vaishnava family. They had a place in Vrindavan and also in Puri, that area. The two latter were still there. Nitya Gopal also was staying there. All of these devotees that we find have some connection with each other that Sri Ramakrishna used to talk about, like this water hyacinth, that they look all separate on the surface, but they're all connected underneath. What is the name of that? Kolmishak. Yeah, yeah. So that this Nitya Gopal, he used to stay very often in Ram's house. Ram's house was near Narendra's house. Surendra, the house was right there. Ram was a very close uncle of Narendra. Swami Vivekananda grew up in their household even. Our Swami Shivananda, Taruk, he also lived in Ram's house very often. He didn't have really a place of his own. So they had developed a very close kind of network of relatives and friends and all through Sri Ramakrishna, all the devotees, and would travel together. Sri Ramakrishna did this, that he was very anxious to see that a very sweet relationship develop among the devotees. And he even knew which ones would go together. He used to say that a housewife in the family is the one who knows which lid goes with which pot. So he would even connect to, like Bhavanath and Narendra, that he felt that they were in the same wavelength somehow, and that they would help each other in spiritual life. So, the master, how is Rakhal? So he's showing his concern. Juni, he is quite well now, sir. Master, isn't Nitya Gopal coming back? Chuni, he was still there when I left. Nitya Gopal was very unpredictable. We don't know much about where he stayed and what he was up to. And Sri Ramakrishna used to say that he was in the state of the Paramahamsa. He used to go into ecstatic moods, and later he had his own following. There were temples in his name and everything. But he never became part of the real inner circle, certainly not one of the monastic disciples, though he became a monk later. He was a little bit of a free soul that way. But Thakur praised him very much, and he, of course, was very devoted to Sri Ramakrishna. But Sri Ramakrishna made some comments about how he didn't really belong to that same inner circle at the end and everything. So I'll go back a little. Master, how is Rakhal? Chuni, he is quite well now, sir. Master, isn't Nitai Gopal coming back? Chuni, he was still there when I left. Master, who will bring your family back? Chuni, Balaram Babu told me he would arrange it with some reliable person. He didn't mention any name. Sri Ramakrishna then spoke to Mahendra Mukherjee about Narayan, a schoolboy 16 or 17 years old who often visited the master and was very dear to him. We've met Mahendra and Priyanath Mukherjee. They're referred to as the Mukherjee brothers very often. One was had that flour mill. The other, neither of them had much work to do, so they visited Sri Ramakrishna very often. This Narayan, younger, Thakur was very fond of him. There were many of these young ones who could have easily become monks, we feel somehow, but parents were not against it. Marriages were arranged for them when they were young. I think they quickly arranged the marriages. The parents were nervous. Yeah, Sri Ramakrishna, he had a reputation of being a kidnapper, and that M was his accomplice. Yeah, so. Master, he is quite guileless, isn't he? This is Narayan. Yeah, this was one of the qualities that Sri Ramakrishna praised more than anything else. This simplicity and sincerity and guilelessness is something that easier for children, young people, and simple people, village people. Sophisticated city people, it's hard for them to be very guileless. We grow up a little too clever. Yeah. But Ramakrishna loved that quality. And many of these young boys who came, he really praised them for their guilelessness. Whatever he would ask them to do, they could do. They had no sense of shame or pride or anything. And free from the idea of sex. This was another thing that was kind of part of this equation, these are the boys who came at that time. The very uttering of the word guileless filled the master with great joy. Mahendra, yes, sir, completely guileless. Master, his mother came here the other day. I was a little frightened to see that she was a proud woman. That day she found that Captain, you, and many others too visited me. We've had many opportunities to meet this captain, Vishwanath Upadhyay. He was a very high government official from Nepal who used to visit Sri Ramakrishna. And Sri Ramakrishna praised him very much. He was a very orthodox Hindu, but had tremendous fondness for Sri Ramakrishna, who wasn't quite orthodox enough for his taste because he mixed with Keshav Sen and others. Yeah. So that day she found that Captain, you, and many others too visited me. Then she must have realized that she and her son were not the only people to come here. All laugh. This reminds me of Swami Swahanandaji, that he had a stock expression that he used to use. I don't know why, but at least when he spoke in Trabuco, almost every time he would look around the room and say, "It's good that you all came. Now you know you're not the only fools who became religious." Yeah, he used to like to say that. He would say something like that. Yes. So then she must have realized that she and her son were not the only people to come here. All left. There was some sugar candy in the room, and she remarked that it was good. That made her feel that there was no scarcity of food here. Now, this is the same thing that Sri Ramakrishna used to say about Rakhal's father, that when he came, he saw that there were people of high position, deputy magistrates and others, and then he also had a higher opinion of Sri Ramakrishna. Yeah, the reputation of Sri Ramakrishna in those days was a little bit sketchy somehow. That there were those, of course, who would do anything for him, looked upon him as an avatar, Ram, and especially and some of the others. Then there were the Brahmos who had great respect for him, thought he was a little bit mad, and then there were people who thought that he was just kind of a quack or a madman, and a lot of these Ram and others really had, in the beginning, especially, had to put up with a lot of criticism from their neighbors and the people of the locality for going to him because he was so untraditional in his ways, and he did act like a madman at many times. So a lot of people were skeptical when they went to meet Ramakrishna the first time. And he had a habit of acting very sane when he wanted to, and could even, I don't want to say flatter people, but almost flatter them. Yeah. And just make them feel welcome, and make them feel that, especially if the son is not coming to a madman, and that there are other people who come and everything. So he knew how to work the room a little bit. Yeah. So there was some sugar candy in the room, and she remarked that it was good. That made her feel there was no scarcity of food here. I happened to tell Baburam in front of her, Baburam, of course, Swami Premanand, to keep some sweets for himself and Narayan. Ganu's mother said that Narayan always bothered his mother for the boat hire to come here. His mother said to me, "Please ask Narayan to consent to marriage." I replied, "Well, that depends on one's fate." Yeah, this was a question that came up with Holy Mother very often also, that parents would very often say, "Please, why my son or my daughter, they're not interested in marriage, please tell them you're married and everything's fine and everything." And she used to say, I know the bondage that can come, doesn't always come, the bondage that can come through marriage. How can you ask me to recommend that for them? And Sri Ramakrishna, he would get around it a little bit. Yeah. So, well, that depends on one's fate. This, of course, is a belief that is part of this prarabdha karma, will determine one of the things, marriage or whom we marry, these types of questions. So all that depends on one's fate. Why should I interfere? All that. Narayan is indifferent to his studies. His mother said, "Please ask him to pay a little more attention." So I said to Narayan, "Attend to your studies." And then his mother said, "Please tell him seriously." All that. Yeah, this was another game that Thakur played, especially with we see with the Baburam, Swami Premananda, that he would also, now he wants to do his studies, or he's not paying attention to his studies, and then he eventually failed. And Sri Ramakrishna left. He knew his life wasn't meant for that. To Chunilal, why doesn't Gopal come here? I'm not sure which Gopal this refers to. Anybody? Chunilal, he's been suffering from dysentery. Master, is he taking any medicine? Sri Ramakrishna was planning to go to a performance of the Chaitanya Leela at the Star Theatre. Of course, the Girish Ghosh is the famous play. Mahendra Mukherjee was to take him to Calcutta in his carriage. They were talking about choosing good seats. Some suggested that one could see the performance well from the 1 rupee gallery. These are cheap seats. Ram said, "Oh no, I shall engage a box for him." The master laughed. Some of the devotees said that public women took part in the play. They took the parts of Nimai, Nitai, and others. This is Nimai, Nitai. This is Chaitanya Deva and Nityananda. Yeah, in those days, the actresses had very bad reputations. That very often they were forced into some type of life, being the mistresses of wealthy people and actually other people in the theater. Not that they were bad people or anything. Some of them were tremendously devoted to Sri Ramakrishna, yeah, or Vinodini, and yeah, and Tata and others, yeah, and very devoted to Swami Brahmanandi also, yeah. But this was their condition. It was almost kind of a caste. They were there was a very nice documentary that was done years ago. It was called Brothels of Calcutta, I think was the title of it. And it was all about the children who grow up in these red light districts. And they're almost doomed to that life, the girls, yeah. And the boys, yes, you know, they're very hard for them to get out of that. And this woman, I think she was English, uh, she somehow taught them photography and other things. Anybody see this? Documentary? Yeah, yeah, and arranged for them to go abroad and had some way to make some money and have some skill that could break that cycle. Yeah, so that they could have a the independent type of life. Yeah. Yeah, we think of Sri Ramakrishna. Oh, he was so particular about purity and this and that, and the people. But he was so these actresses were so devoted to him, and after the performances, they would all make pranam to him. Some touching his feet, even. We don't find him jumping around. Sometimes he'll say "mother" from a distance, but uh, some were really he was very fond of. There's that very nice incident where Vinodini, at the end of his life in Kashipur, how they dress her up. Yeah. Now, why they let an Englishman in, I never understood. But they were restricting visitors to Sri Ramakrishna. And when he saw her, immediately he recognized her and he left. He was very happy that she came. Yeah, then she just retired from the stage. And lived, I think, in Bhubaneswar, near Raja Maharaj, Swami Brahmananda. She had a little hut and really led a real life of tapasya, a sadhu type of life. So some of the devotees said that public women took part in the play. They took the part of Nimai, Nitai, and the others. Master to the devotees, I shall look upon them as the blissful mother herself. What if one of them acts the part of Chaitanya? An imitation custard apple reminds one of the real fruit. Once, while going along a road, a devotee of Krishna noticed some babala trees. Instantly, his mind was thrown into ecstasy. He remembered that the wood of babala trees was used for the handles of the spades that the garden of the temple of Sham Sundur was dug with. The trees instantly reminded him of Krishna. I was once taken to the Moidan in Calcutta to see a balloon go up. There I noticed a young English boy leaning against a tree with his body banded 3 places. It at once brought before me the vision of Krishna, and I went into samadhi. Yeah, this is Tribhanga. This is something which Ramakrishna used to call uddipana. That this triggering of a spiritual mood in the mind by seeing something that would activate it. And we have the classical example is Radha, and the historical example is Chaitanya Deva, and then Sri Ramakrishna. So we have so many songs and so many references to Radha seeing a black cloud and reminded of the complexion of Krishna and going into ecstasy, or seeing a peacock with the tails all open, and Krishna used to keep a peacock feather, so she would be reminded of that. And in the life of Chaitanya Deva, this was this was really played out, so much so that they feel that he was a partial incarnation of Radha. Yeah, half Radha, half Krishna. And then in the life of Swami Krishna, this Moidan is a big open area, something like the mall in Washington, D.C., where they'll put in all different types of things, performances, and set up a circus and have a book fair, all sorts of things there. And so this was one example for Sri Ramakrishna, this English boy, leaning against a band in such a way that it looked like the typical image of Krishna playing his flute with one leg crossed in front of the other and kind of bent in three ways. One Chaitanya Deva was passing through a village. Someone told him that the body of the drum used in the kirtan was made from the earth of that village, and at once he went into ecstasy. Radha, this is really the classical example, could not control herself at the sight of a cloud or the blue throat of a peacock. It would at once awaken in her mind the thought of Krishna, and she would go into ecstasy. Yeah, Thakur used to say that in such cases, the mind is like very dry kindling, that the tiniest little spark and the whole thing will go into flame. His mind was like that, of course. The master was silent a few moments and then resumed the conversation. Master, Radha had attained mahabhava. This mahabhava is considered to be, in the Vaishnava tradition, the highest stage of a devotional ecstasy. And Sri Ramakrishna said that this is something a little bit like this nirvikalpa samadhi is reserved for these very special souls who can experience that and come back down. The same thing with this mahabhava, that he used to say only these great souls, avatars or ishvarakotis or people of that stature can withstand the force of the type of emotion, that it would shatter the body even. It's he gave several illustrations like this bull in a small straw hut, or he was saying when a big elephant goes into just a small pond, how all the water will go out of it. Yeah. So this, when it says Radha had attained mahabhava, what he's really saying is that she was one of these rare souls who could reach that highest state of devotion. There was no desire behind the ecstatic love of the gopis. Yeah, we're reading in the great master, Sri Ramakrishna, and his divine play, all about this Madhura Bhava, and how this somehow this idea of romantic love between a man and a woman gets brought into it and degrades it a little bit. And Sri Ramakrishna is always emphasizing the fact that there was no touch of lust in any of this, that was really a very pure type of love that we see in younger people, where that even that sex feeling hasn't been awakened yet. A very pure type of sweet, and a very innocent type of relationship. So no desire means no lust. It also means, especially with Radha, that she didn't care about herself. Everything was for his sake. Whether she got anything out of it or not, it was a purely selfless type of love. So he says Radha had attained mahabhava. There was no desire behind the ecstatic love of the gopis. A true lover does not seek anything from God. Now, this means worldly things. Of course, Thakur is always telling us that we should seek devotion and purity of heart and all the good qualities and everything. This of course, that we should pray for, but no worldly things. The devotee prays only for pure love. He doesn't want any powers or miracles. It is very troublesome to possess occult powers. Nangta taught me this by a story. A man who had acquired occult powers was sitting on the seashore when a storm arose. It caused him great discomfort, so he said, "Let the storm stop. His words could not remain unfulfilled. At that moment, a ship was going full sail before the wind. When the storm ceased abruptly, the ship capsized and sank. The passengers perished, and the sin of causing their death fell to that man. And because of that sin, he lost his occult powers and went to hell. Once upon a time, a sadhu acquired great occult powers. He was vain about them, but he was a good man and had some austerities to his credit. One day, the Lord, disguised as a holy man, came to him and said, "Revered sir, I've heard that you have great occult powers." The sadhu received the Lord cordially and offered him a seat. Just then, an elephant passed by. The Lord, in the disguise of the holy man, said to the sadhu, "Revered sir, can you kill this elephant if you like?" The sadhu said, "Yes, it is possible." So saying, he took a pinch of dust, muttered some mantras over it, and threw it at the elephant. The beast struggled a while in pain and then dropped dead. The Lord said, "What power you have! You've killed the elephant." The sadhu laughed. Again the Lord spoke. "Now can you revive the elephant?" "That too is possible," replied the sadhu. He threw another pinch of charmed dust at the beast. The elephant writhed about a little and came back to life. Then the Lord said, "Wonderful is your power, but may I ask you one thing? You have killed the elephant and you have revived it. But what has that done for you? Do you feel uplifted by it? Has it enabled you to realize God?" Saying this, the Lord vanished. Subtle are the ways of dharma. One cannot realize God if one has even the least trace of desire. A thread cannot pass through the eye of a needle if it has the smallest fiber sticking out. Now, this is something that doesn't make us feel very hopeful. If we're looking for encouragement, that because we read everyone can realize God, that this is open to all, and we think, is it possible to be completely free from desire? So, two things come to my mind. One, there's a very big distinction between realizing God here and now and realizing God at the final moment. Yeah. I have this very great conviction from seeing dying people, even people who are not terribly spiritual in their lifetime. Even for them, many of these little desires just fall away at the very end. Even desire for food. Even people who love to eat and they had special things that they would eat, and at the end it just kind of drops off as the end approaches, whether they realize the end is coming or not. So maybe there'll be some desire for being reunited with their loved ones who had passed away, something like that. But very worldly desires seem to fall away. Now, that doesn't mean everyone will get God realization at the end. But for those who really lead a spiritual life and have some real, genuine devotion, that I think these worldly desires will disappear, and this longing for union with God will come to the forefront at the end. This is the belief that whatever is the dominant theme of one's life will overtake everything else, cancel out all the other things, and that'll be the one thing that will come to the mind at the very end. Now, the other thing, if we want realization here and now, I also don't think that we have to be 100% free from desires, because absolute freedom from desire comes after realization. This also we read. Absolute freedom from doubt comes after realization. What we need, at least, to reach that point where these desires don't have any control over us. Yeah. And I always remember one of the verses that I like most from this Stita Prajna section of Bhagavad Gita, that even for this sthita prajna, this is really a God-realized soul. We can say this is a jivan mukta, someone living in the world perfectly free. We have this verse that says that desires flow into such a person, just as the river will flow into the ocean, that the ocean is undisturbed, that it remains full and unmoved. When the river is coming down from the mountains, it has tremendous power. By the time it gets to the ocean, it just very gently enters into it without raising much of a fuss or anything like that. So these being absolutely free from desire, it means that we've reached a state where if any desire rises in the mind, it won't raise any waves and it won't have much effect on us. These desires will come just from our past experiences and things, and just from having a human body, that these things will come. But real worldly desires, those things which will really bring the mind down, of course, those things have to be dealt with. Krishna said to Arjuna, "Friend, if you want to realize me, you will not succeed if you have even one of the 8 occult powers." Now, somehow this is always included in this list of desires that some people, when they develop some real intensity of meditation, some desire may come for occult powers. I don't think most of us have to worry about these things. Yeah. But it's a traditional thing that Ramakrishna mentioned so many times. Yeah, as if it's an easy thing to attain. But he warns people against even the desire for occult powers. This is the truth. Occult power is sure to beget pride, and pride makes one forget God. Did Sri Ramakrishna have occult powers?
He did, but he didn't use them.
Yes. Did Swamiji have them?
Yes.
Yeah. See, some of these things just come naturally with the intensity of that meditation and just the inherent power of the individual and the strength of mind. They're not exactly the same type of occult powers, but yes, Swamiji could read somebody's mind. He would know things that are going to happen before they happen. Yeah, we read that one story. When he went to Sharat Maharaj's house, Swami Sharadananda, he said it seemed as if I'd seen all of the rooms before and everything, and then he thought maybe it was something from a past life, and then he said no, but it seems to me that everything that will take place in my life in the future has been revealed to me already in the past somehow. So his mind wasn't like ordinary mind. We know that much at least. It's very hard to explain these things. But when Sri Ramakrishna offered him, this was another test in Kashipur at the end of his life. He said, "I've developed some of these occult powers that now what will I do with them? I can transfer them to you." And Narendra said, "Will these be of any benefit to me in realizing God?" He said, "No, but they may be helpful in the future work and spreading the message and everything." He said, "No, if they won't help me to realize God, then I won't care for them." Of course, he had already had a samadhi and other things, but once a cross-eyed rich man came here. He said to me, "You are a Paramahamsa. That is good. You must perform a swastiyayana ceremony for me. This is something you hire a priest to do, pay a little money and give a few things, and they bless you, and you're supposed to get cured of illnesses and all sorts of things." What a small-minded person he was. He called me a Paramahamsa, and yet wanted me to perform that ceremony. To secure welfare by means of the swastiyayana is to exercise occult power. An egotistic person cannot realize God. So now, a person who is filled with desires, a person who doesn't have this guilelessness, a scheming type of person, and now egotistic person. So these are all the obstacles that we have to try to overcome. This pride that we have, pride of all sorts of things. pride of learning, pride of spirituality, pride of humility. All very, very subtle things that can come at the end. Yeah. They say with sadhus and with great souls that sometimes they'll get rid of everything, but this little pride of spirituality will come as a kind of final hurdle. Even if they get rid of other types of things. So this, yeah, because this sense of ego, it binds us to the body and the mind. It separates us from other people. It gives a feeling of superiority from others. It doesn't allow us to have that real love and compassion and oneness with the others. So dozens and dozens of reasons. This is why Swamiji emphasized this selflessness more than anything else. Thakur emphasizes guilelessness. Swamiji, I would say, really emphasized this unselfishness. He used to say God is unselfishness. Yeah. To be able to live for others, to care for others more than ourselves, to get rid of that sense of I. And it happens through this path of devotion, where whole mind is fixed on the object of love, and we forget ourselves. It happens through the path of knowledge, through analysis, when we try to really find out what is the nature of this I. Sri Ramakrishna, he used to say, if you search for Ami, you'll find Tini. If you search for this I, you'll find God. Ami means I, Tini means he. Yeah. So for the jnani, to see that the real I is that divine presence of Ishvara dwelling within the heart, God dwelling within the heart. So an egotistic person cannot realize God. Do you know what egotism is like? It is like a high mound where rainwater cannot collect. The water runs off. Water collects in lowland. Their seeds sprout and grow into trees. Then the trees bear fruit. Therefore I say to Hazra, Hazra was tremendously proud of his little bit of knowledge that he had, proud of his little bit of austerities, that he practiced a lot of japa, and proud that he seemed to know more than anybody else, even Sri Ramakrishna. That here Sri Ramakrishna is so busy with longing for the company of the young devotees, and he's perfectly detached, so proud of his detachment. Wonderful detachment that he left his family and his old mother, alone in the village, anxious to see him at least. And so he was a funny character. Therefore I say to Hazra, never think that you alone have true understanding and that others are fools. One must love all. No one is a stranger. We sometimes make this very funny distinction that, Sri Ramakrishna, he always saying that no one is your own, God alone is your own, and Holy Mother, how different she is, that no one is a stranger, my child. Thakur says the same thing. Yeah. There's very little, we can find very little in the teachings of Holy Mother that are not there in the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna. Yeah. Not that she couldn't think on her own or anything, but these were how she was really trained by Sri Ramakrishna, because he knew she had to carry on the same type of work. So it's true that Sri Ramakrishna did emphasize the other also, that don't think you can rely on anybody, that even your nearest and dearest, they can turn on you in a second, that the only one that we can really rely on always is God himself. So he did say that, but the other idea is equally strong. One must love all. No one is a stranger. It is Hari alone who dwells in all beings. Nothing exists without him. So this is that blend of Advaita Vedanta and devotion. And this is why when Sri Ramakrishna, when he had that long conversation about Jivedoya, that compassionate living beings, and it's really worship of God dwelling with all, that Narendra said, today I've seen this beautiful blending of Advaita Vedanta and devotion and Bhakti Yoga. He understood it that way. The Lord said to Prahlada, "Ask a boon of me." "I've seen you," replied Prahlada. "That is enough. I don't need anything else." But the Lord insisted. Thereupon Prahlada said, "If you must give me a boon, let it be that those who have tortured me may not have to suffer punishment." The meaning of those words is that it was God who tortured Prahlada. Yeah, because he was tortured quite a bit. Yeah, with his father and everything. In the form of his persecutors. And if they suffered punishment, it would really be God who suffered. Radha was mad with prema, ecstatic love of God. Yeah, these distinctions, bhava, prema, mahabhava, these are all just not big distinctions, the distinctions of intensity. And with different levels of devotion, higher and higher and higher. Well, all of them can fall under prema, the divine love of God. So Radha was mad with prema, ecstatic love of God, but there is also the madness of bhakti. So bhakti will just be this type of devotion that doesn't manifest itself in ecstatic visions and singing and dancing and falling on the ground. Hanuman wasn't like that. He was very much focused, but he had equal devotion. It just so there's also the madness of bhakti. Hanuman's was such. When he saw Sita entering the fire, he was going to kill Rama. Then two, there's the madness of knowledge. So this Unmadhava, this is one of the examples that we have of these God-realized souls, that they appear to be like a madman. This can also come from knowledge, especially if we see that one divine presence dwelling with all things, we lose all distinctions that ordinary people have with regard to society, with regard to proper behavior and everything. That can all go out the window. I once saw Jnani behaving like a madman. He came here very soon after the temple garden was dedicated. People said he belonged to the Brahmo Shobha of Ram Mohan Roy. This will be the precursor to the Brahmo Samaj. I don't know much about this, but Ram Mohan Roy was really, we can trace Brahmo Samaj back to him, and then Devendranath Tagore. So people say he belonged to the Brahmo Sabha of Ram Mohan Roy. He had a torn shoe on one foot, a stick in one hand, and a potted mango plant in the other. After a dip in the Ganges, he went to the Kali temple, where Haladhari was seated. With great fervor, he began to chant a hymn to the Divine Mother. Yeah, in another place he says the whole temple began to shake. With great fervor, he began to chant a hymn to the Divine Mother. Then he went up to a dog, held it by the ear, and ate some of its food. The dog didn't mind. Just at that time, I too was about to experience the state of divine madness. I threw my arm around Hridoy's neck and said, "Oh, Hriday, shall I too fall into that plight?" I became mad. Narayan Sastri came here and saw me roaming about with a bamboo pole on my shoulder. He said to the people, "Ah, he is mad." In that state, I could not observe any caste restrictions. The wife of a low caste man used to send me cooked greens, and I ate them. Yes, Sri Ramakrishna went through different stages in his life. That there were times when this idea of pure and impure completely disappeared during this period. There were times when he couldn't touch metal, and there were times where he wore an amulet on his arm. There were times when he could only eat food that was cooked by a Brahmin, and it was offered first to the Divine Mother. Then there were times when he could eat anything. These were all different stages that he went through, all very consistent with the type of spiritual practice and experiences he was having at that time. there was a time when this balidan, this sacrifice of a goat, this was something that they all saw there. Then later he said, I can't bear to watch it, and couldn't bear, certainly couldn't even touch any of that prasad. With a finger he would touch it and touch his forehead, so as not to offend the Divine Mother somehow. Yeah. So he went through all different stages here. Even once, Rakhal was carrying food to him, and he coughed a little bit. And he said, "Oh, what have you done? I can't touch this food now." His beloved Rakhal. So these just different stages in his life that he went through. He wasn't always in control of these things, and just Divine Mother was leading him one experience after another. He used to explain that way. I touched my head and lips with the leaf plates from which the beggars ate their food in the guest house of the Kali temple. Yeah, a lot of these things he did under the Brahmani. That these were some tantric types of practices that she had him do. Even feces of a jackal and all sorts of things, touching with the tongue, and yeah, just to get rid of this idea of pure and impure. Raga Dvesa, these ideas, and what is it? Tongue is made of the three gunas. It's also made of the three gunas. Some sensation is coming to the mind. I am only the witness of the mind. Why should I feel repulsion? That's only in the mind. It's not in the object. All these very high spiritual ideas are behind some of these practices, which seem just to be nonsense to us. Very high spiritual ideas. So Haladhari said to me, "What have you done? You've taken the food left by beggars. How will you marry off your children?" There's a footnote. According to the rules of Hindu society, Brahmins lose their caste by eating food left or touched by people of a lower caste. These words aroused my anger. Haladhari was my cousin, older than myself. But could that restrain me? I said to him, "You wretch, isn't it you who take pride in the study of the Gita and the Vedanta?" Haladhari was also like Hazra a little bit. Yeah, all of these people who came to Sri Ramakrishna. Isn't it you who teach people that Brahman alone is real and the world illusory, and yet you imagine that I shall beget children? May your mouth that recites from the Gita be blighted. To M. You see, mere study of books avails nothing. Yeah, this is always a question. We read these things, and yet we go ahead and we keep studying Vedanta and tough things. Now doing this Panchadashi, very tough. Yeah. But if that's all we do, then it avails nothing. Mere study of books. If that gives us some conviction and some clarity regarding spirituality, then it's helpful, of course. But we can't limit our spiritual practice to that. One may recite the written part from the drum glibly from memory. Yeah. These all these things. Yeah. I met this one young Pakawaj player. He said he knew 10,000 bulls, they called them, and he was very young. He learned to recite these things before he could speak. Yeah, his father was a musician and taught him these things. But if you can't play the drum, then what good is it? If you can't play Pakawaj or tabla. So one may recite the written part for the drum glibly from memory, but to play the drum is exceedingly difficult. The master continued with a description of his divine madness. Once, for a few days, I was out on an excursion with Mathur Babu in his houseboat. We took the trip for a change of air. Mathur Babu, of course, was son-in-law of the Rani, Rashmani, and was his patron, paid for everything, took care of him. And during that trip, we visited Navadvip, the birthplace, or near the birthplace of Chaitanya Dev. One day I saw the boatmen cooking their meal and stood and watched them. Boatmen, that means lower caste people. Actually, this is the caste of Rani Rashmani, the Kailvarta. That's why they had such trouble finding a priest. that would officiate at the Dakshineshwar temple because she was from a low caste. So one day I saw the boatmen cooking their meal and stood and watched them. Mother said to me, "What are you doing there?" I replied with a smile, "The boatmen are cooking. Their food looks pretty good." Mother felt that I might ask the boatmen to give me a portion of their food. So we said, "Come away, come away." Yeah, another place he says, all of our life we heard that the food cooked by this kamaras, the blacksmith, that somehow they knew how to cook and everything. And he said, so I tasted a little bit, but it had the taste of the blacksmith. That meant from the type of fire that they use and everything. So he had this curiosity about things. This our Narendra, he was so much against caste distinctions. We were reading the other day how his father used to entertain people from different communities. That means that different Hindu communities and Muslims and Christians also. He was a big attorney at that time. And so he had different hookahs for all of them to smoke. Yeah. So the little Narendra, he said, why different ones for different ones? He said, because his belief is they'll lose caste if they share the same one. So his father saw him one day going up to each one, putting it in his mouth and saying, see, I didn't lose it. And then actually, his father was also very liberal. But I cannot do such a thing now. That means to eat from anybody's hand. I'm no longer in that mood. Now the food must be cooked by a Brahmin, observing ceremonial purity, and be offered to the deity. Then only can I eat it. Yeah, we remember at Nandalal Bose's house, where he was served a meal, and at the very end, he was offered pan, and he refused to take it. And so Nandalal, he asked, everything else you did was proper. Why did you refuse this one thing? And he said, oh, it's just a thing with me. It doesn't mean anything much. And he said, no, explain to me. And he said, you see, I can't take anything unless I first offer it to the Divine Mother. Others have taken from that plate already. So I can't offer something that's been already eaten by other people. So he said, don't take it personally. It's not a big thing. Just a little funny thing that I observe. He put it that way. Oh, what mood I passed through. At Kamarpukur, I said to Chine, Shankari, and the other chums of my boyhood days, oh, I fall at your feet and beg of you to utter the name of Hari. I was about to prostrate myself before them. Thereupon, Chine said, this is the first outburst of your divine love, so you don't see any distinction between one man and another. When the storm breaks and raises the dust, then mango and tamarind trees look the same, but one cannot distinguish the one from the other. Now we'll get a little bit of a serious question. The topic will change a little. A devotee. How can a householder keep on with his worldly duties if he is overwhelmed by such bhakti madness or love madness or knowledge madness? Very often when it says a devotee, it means M, himself.
Yeah.
We don't know that for sure, but there are not so many in the room with him, and he could have easily mentioned the name, so it could be him. This was always a big struggle for him because he was a headmaster and had his own school at some time and had to always try to earn enough money to look after the family. And he gave a lot of money away. He was very generous, quietly generous. So he gave money to Narendra's mother, later gave money for Holy Mother and to help with Bharanagamat and other places like that. So a very good chance that this is M. Of course, we don't know for sure. Master looking at him. There are two kinds of yogis, the revealed and the hidden. Yeah, these Gupta yogis. The householder may be a hidden yogi. None recognizes him. The householder should renounce mentally, not outwardly. So this means that uh, one can continue with one's worldly duties, and this tremendous rush of divine emotion can remain controlled somehow, so that it doesn't lead to this type of madness that one is incapable of performing worldly duties and living in the world that way. So the householder may be a hidden yogi. None recognizes him. The householder should renounce mentally, not outwardly. Ram. You talk as if you were consoling children. Ram had a very free type of relationship with Ramakrishna. And he liked to gossip also and say funny things to him and everything. But he could ask things like this: "You talk as if you were consoling children," because there was some feeling that the real teachings were given to the future monastic disciples, and when it came to the householders, that he was just placating them. He said, "Yes, internal renunciation is enough. You can continue with your duties. Hold on to God with one hand, hold on to the world with the other." That this was just to keep them quiet. The real teaching was for the monks. You have to renounce everything for God. So the little bit of that feeling was there. So Ram, you talk as if you were consoling children. A householder may be a jnani, but never a vijnani. Now, Ram is showing off a little bit that he learned this distinction from Sri Ramakrishna, that it's not very valid with regard to householder or non-householder. But anyhow, uh, for Sri Ramakrishna, the jnani is the one who can have that realization, uh, or maybe just following the path of knowledge. Vijnani is somebody who has a fuller type of experience, realizes God in all possible ways, sees God dwelling everywhere. Uh, yeah, do we find the householder Vijnanis? First of all, we don't find many to begin with, even among monks. Uh, but there's no reason why it couldn't be like that. Master, he may be a Vijnani at the end, but it is not good to force oneself into renunciation. So this was the thing that many would feel this momentary inspiration to renounce everything by being in the company of Sri Ramakrishna. Some of them actually did it. Some of these pundits who came to Sri Ramakrishna, inspired by him, they would go off to Benares and lead a very pure type of sadhu type of life. Some of the householders would spend some small time, this Harish and others, with Sri Ramakrishna. Some of them uh, would have liked to have taken the monastic life, and Sri Ramakrishna said, "Oh, what will you do? You have your family. Who will raise them? The other people in the neighborhood will feed them." So he would scold them sometimes. With the M, it was a little more serious because M probably was equally qualified to take the monastic life. This is why, in the beginning, Sri Ramakrishna was a little bit unhappy when he heard that M was married. It wasn't that he was so much against marriage, but he said, "I see good signs in you, that man, that I see that you have certain purity and freedom from the passions, that you could have led a life of perfect renunciation." So he knew that if those who take the monastic life out of some momentary exhilaration or something, that it won't last. It'll backfire even. Ram. Keshav Sen used to say, "Why do people go to him so much?" Meaning Sri Ramakrishna. "One day he will sting them and they will flee from him." Master. Why should I sting people? I say to people, do this as well as that. Did he sting them a little bit? From this, another illustration that he used to use, that if one is bitten by a ordinary snake or swallowed, then there's no end to the suffering. One is bitten by a cobra, then three cries and it's gone. So those who came to Sri Ramakrishna, if they really got the full power, that venom and everything, yeah, that ego would die, and maybe this desire to lead a worldly life would also disappear. So I think there's a little bit of truth in this, but Not that they would leave him, but they'd go deeper in spiritual life and for their benefit, of course. Master, why should I sting people? I say to people, do this as well as that. Do your worldly duties and call on God as well. I don't ask them to renounce everything. Yeah. Whenever we hear that, it'll be because some of the future monastics are there. Otherwise, to the householders, he didn't say that. One day, Kesha was delivering a lecture. He said, O Lord, grant us that we may dive into the river of divine love and go straight to the ocean of Satchidananda. The ladies were seated behind the screen. I said to Kesha, how can you all dive once for all? Pointing to the ladies, I said, then what would happen to them? Every now and then, you must return to dry land. You must dive and rise alternately. Keshav and the others laughed. Hazara says to me, you love most those endowed with rajas, those who have great wealth and name and fame. If that is so, then why do I love people like Harish and Noto? Noto is Latu. Yeah. Swami Adbhutananda. Why do I love Narendra? He can't even afford salt to season his roast banana. Yeah, this is, of course, after his father died. Sri Ramakrishna left his room and went toward the pine grove, talking with M. A devotee followed them with water and towel. The master was talking about his intended visit to the Star Theater. He said to M, what Ram says applies to Rajasic people. What is the use of reserving an expensive seat? That was in reference to the ticket that they would buy. Okay, so we'll stop here because the next thing that we find is that Sri Ramakrishna is on his way to Calcutta to go to the Star Theater. So we're ending on page 550. This still the chapter at the Star Theater, part 1. Om Niranjanam Nityamanantarupam Bhaktanukam Bhathudavikraham Ishavataram Parameshamidiham Tamaramakrishna Sirisa Namama. We bow our heads before Sri Ramakrishna, who is stainless, of infinite nature, whose heart melts in sympathy for his devotees, who is an embodiment of the divine and the Supreme Lord, and ever worthy of our worship. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. A reminder to everybody that for our local people, please try to come tomorrow. We are observing Ram Navami, and it's the 27th anniversary of the founding of the center. And for those who can't come, this will be shown on YouTube, live streaming, and also the afternoon program. There'll be some singing session and some music, and then there'll be a panel discussion, and then Arati and Ramnam. And then on Sunday, we have a special guest, Swami, coming, Swami Tyagarupanandaji. He's in charge of one of our large centers in Bengal, the Malda Center. He'll be here for a few days. He'll give the lecture on Sunday.